first, the fallout from the news of the world hacking scandals extended well beyond the UK press. Facing mounting pressure from the British Parliament and public, News Corporation has withdrawn its bid for B-Sky B.
With both sides of the political fence opposing the proposed B-Sky B takeover, Rupert Murdoch was left with little choice. News Corp owns 39% of B-Sky B. Now plans to buy the remaining 61% have been shelved.
I think this is the right decision. I've been saying that this company clearly needs to sort out the problems there are at News International, at the News of the World. That must be the priority, not takeovers. So the right decision, but also the right decision for the country too. But we've now got to get on with the work of the police investigation and the public inquiry that I've set up today.
Last week, the News of the World was closed down, the final issue of the 168-year-old paper published on Sunday. On Monday, the B-Sky B bid was referred to the Competition Commission in a bid to strip politics out of the heated debate. But on Wednesday, Parliament was set to endorse a motion urging Rupert Murdoch to drop his bid for Sky. He moved before it got to a vote.
It is unusual, to put it mildly, for a motion in this House to succeed before the debate on it begins. But this is no ordinary motion, and this is no ordinary day. Make no mistake, the decision made by News Corporation was not the decision they wanted to make. It may have been announced before this debate, but it would not have happened without it.
Meantime, in Australia, News Limited has announced it will review editorial payments from the past 3 years in the wake of the phone hacking scandal. News Limited chief John Hartigan says he has no reason to suspect any wrongdoing within the company, but all payments to third parties will be tracked to make sure ethical behaviour has been upheld.
Sky News Business is 1/3 owned by Britain's B-Sky B. For more on this story, James Manning joins us. He's the editor and publisher of Mediaweek. James, good to have you along, as always.
Hi, Kylie.
I guess the big question, where to now for the B-Sky bid?
Yeah, well, that's just on ice, isn't it? There's nothing going ahead there. They've said they'll continue to be a shareholder in the business, but they'll just leave that and then try to sort of, tidy up the newspaper business in the UK and the ramifications it will have on the other parts of that print business around the world.
Well, here in Australia, News Limited obviously sort of undertaking its own investigation to make sure nothing untoward's been going on in the Australian market. But what are the broader implications for the media here? Well,
the government, regulation, if you like, tighter controls, some sort of board that sort of looks over the newspaper or the general media sector to make sure, things are kept in check. Those sort of things you wonder, how can they work? Do we really need them? But when you look at what's happened in the UK, it's hard to argue that, well, that the sector has been, likes to say it keeps everyone else accountable. So who's keeping the media accountable?
The media ownership debate's been going on in Australia certainly for as long as I can remember. On Thursday afternoon, in fact, Senator Bob Brown, the Greens leader, announced that he'll be calling for yet another inquiry into media ownership. Here's a bit of what he had to say.
Following events in Fleet Street, it's very clear that here in Australia there's a sufficient concern about the potential unrolling of similar events in this country to warrant a look at who owns the media, why we have the biggest concentration of press ownership, and that's by news, in the democratic Western world.
Bob Brown there. James, would you expect to see any sort of, government inquiry now here?
Yeah, there might be some sort of, I don't know, it's really hard to know where this will end up, the sort of force it's taken over just the last few days. I mean, what are they, there's still, people are still saying there's more to come in the UK, so I think it'd be a brave person now to come out and say, yeah, look, I think it'll go this way, go that way.
All right. We'll let you sit on the fence then. Much of the Mediaweek discussion around online in recent times has been about the paywall. New sites and apps being launched with a view to get readers to fork out for good quality content. But our next guests are going the old school model. They've launched a new website aiming to serve a market they say has been largely ignored, and it's free. The Hoopla is the brainchild of Wendy, journalist, author, broadcaster and comedian. She's here, along with the Director of Publishing at Sister Communications, Jane Waterhouse. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
Wendy, if there's anybody's phone that you could hack for a story on the hoopla, who would it be?
Well, we actually have already managed to get Jermaine Greer on board at the hoopla to tell us what she thinks about it. She was very disappointed.
You haven't hacked her phone?
Well, no. But both she and Kathy Lett did actually say they were very disappointed that their phones hadn't been hacked. And wondering whether they were just chopped liver. But so we've had a pretty good array of people. If I could hack anyone's phone, no, I'm not even going to go there. No, we're very ethical.
Now, the hoopla, who had the idea for the project and who's funding it? As I mean, you hear people starting up blogs just with an internet connection and a Hotmail address, but you seem to have gone a few steps beyond that.
Yeah. Well, I'm working with Jane. Jane's marketing at Sister Communications, and she's looking after the bucks.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it really came from the fact that we knew there was a lot of women out there who didn't have a place online in that sort of 35 plus age group, and they weren't being served. And at Sister we saw that, and then Wendy, of course, had such great success on radio, in particular with the ABC and Angela Catterns, and we thought we'll put these two things together. And what we really want to do is remain an independent voice. So it was really important for us that we've actually financed this ourselves, so that we can keep that independence and that allow us to be pretty free about what we have to say. And if you have a look at the content, you'll see it's quite free-ranging.
There's already, I noticed there's already some advertising on there, magazines and the like. Have you been heartened by the interest from advertisers?
Yeah, we're more heartened by the interest from the community, really, from women out there. We've had such a fabulous response. We've smashed our first week of what we set as our goals. What we're looking for are partners. We're not looking to serve hundreds of ads at this audience. We just want partners who are going to be integrated throughout the site. And we've got some great interest out there right now, because this audience is very affluent. They're working. They are probably the wealthiest generation of women in history, and they're making the major decisions when it comes to sales out there right now. So they're an audience that's very hard for people to get, except if perhaps the ABC were advertising, which of course you can't. So we know we've got that opportunity there.
You're getting some great traction early up with some really fascinating editorial stuff. I mean, what's the business model say? How long can you sort of run before you need to get a sort of core audience that'll be economical for you?
We could sell the car. We could. It's hard to know. It's hard to know.
I think
there's no timeline you've given yourself.
Oh yes, we really over the first 3 months we have to see some good figures coming in, and so far so good.
Yeah. Well, I think the point of difference for our site too is that it's got a really good sense of humour. I like to think, we've got Judith Lucy on there, and Jean Kitson and Ange and I. And one thing we know about this bunch of ladies is they like to have a laugh, So you get your bit of news, but you get a lot of humour as well.
You talk about the market that you're after being underserved by traditional media. Is that particularly just the women thing, or is it more of an age group issue?
I mean, for us at Sister, we think it's really a women thing, because there's a lot of publications, particularly business publications and newspapers, that are really targeted at men. But there's something very unique about women that, and as Wendy said, with the sense of humour, it seems like a lot of media think about 40 women have a sense of humour, bypass, and no longer are interested in men. And this is any publications that are targeted at that audience. It's all just about staying healthy, which there's a bit more to life than staying healthy.
But how's it different to all the sort of the traditional women's media, like your Women's Day and your New Idea and that sort of thing?
I guess we take the whole celebrity thing with a bit of with a grain of salt. I think that we don't. It's not all about babies, and it's not all about shopping. We speak to the sort of woman first. And I think there's plenty of online places to go. Women traditionally go for services. They go to, if they're going to book a trip or something, or buy a car. But this is where there's a little bit of soul food there, and a bit of humour, and a place to share, stories about your life. And I think we're also dealing with that group of women who perhaps maybe their kids are starting to, they're not little anymore. A lot of, right up through to the sort of empty nester, you're starting to get a bit of your brain back, and getting the Vegemite off your off your jumper, and looking for something to read and connect. And I think that's what makes it a little different. And I suppose The other thing that makes it very different is we're getting celebrities writing about celebrities. So, for instance, we had Jessica Rowe writing about Princess Catherine, and so we're getting these high-profile women, I suppose, rather than staff reporters.
A skinny
malinx. one skinny to another skinny, saying, "Don't you call me skinny." It was really fun. It's great fun, and of course, you know, having been in the media as long as I have, I can sort of pick up the phone to most people and say, "Well, you know, why don't you write us a piece about, you know, blah blah blah." That's a lot of fun, you know.
And the other point of difference is our women on the high wire. So that question of the day is attracting a great interest from really high-profile women out there who just want to have a say and don't have any platform to do that.
Yeah, and of course we should mention that our editor is Caroline Roessler, who used to be editor of Notebook magazine. So she's a real old hand. Everybody loved Notebook magazine. It was a real shame that it folded.
What are your early sort of editorial hits? Are there any parts of the website that are sort of doing better than you might have thought they'd done? And you're getting any sort of stray mails wandering in and giving you feedback?
Yes, we are getting the odd bloke wander in, and he got a bit of a belting. I'm sorry to say, he got actually Ethel Chop, who's a well-known, you know, a fantastic comedian, Andrea Powell. She writes under the name Ethel Chop. She said he needed a tray of fudge in his lug hole if that was about the best that he could write. So if you're going to come onto the site, blokes, you better sharpen up, I think.
Now, we've been talking about, you know, particularly in the last 6 months or so, the paywall, all this talk about, you know, really good content, people are happy to pay for it, it's going to go behind the paywall. Is that something that you might look at down the track?
I can't see it. I can't see it. Oh, look, you don't know where these things are going to end up. In a funny kind of way, you put one of these sites up and you think you know what you're going to be doing, then the audience will tell you really what it's about. And I guess the fantastic thing is with this new media is you can turn on a dime, you know. You don't have to go to the boardroom and then, you know, to make all your editorial changes. We'd love not to do that, really. We know that women are massive users of social media, and we like to think that, you know, making a place where it's free to come in and drop in and talk about things of life is what we'd like to do. And, you know, don't have to pay. You don't have to pay to go down to the local, you know, coffee shop, so, you know.
Could the Hoopla branch out? Could it become like a brand, if you like? Could we be going in and buying Hoopla merchandise or Hoopla tours or whatever?
The Hoopla brand definitely has potential to grow into other areas, and we're already in conversation with people who want to take the brand somewhere. So it's not, the online space is definitely the home right now, but what we know about this audience is that they don't really engage with one particular woman. It's not like there's a mentor that they all want to, they're past that. They want to hear from a whole range of women, and the wise, witty women that we've got involved with the Hoopla and that are really attracted to it, that's what will be its key, is keeping that mix of fascinating women that you feel you get a little bit closer to than you would in any other medium.
I was thinking of an airline myself, but I mean, it might be just a little early.
We start with a card.
There could be a few going cheaply. It's a good time to be buying, I think, if you want an airline.
Wendy, one of the great partnerships that you have on air has been with Angela Catterns on ABC in Sydney, and I know now the Hoopla is the new home of the Wendy and Ange podcast. How's that been going? And do you think that's really helped sort of give you a bit of a cornerstone, because so many people, particularly in Sydney, know the pair of you as a good fun thing to listen to?
Yeah, well, we're still, you know, we're still cackling away like a pair of silly old witches that we are. Yeah, look, I think that's been a fantastic thing. I mean, you know, it's really difficult for ABC people to leave the ABC. They're pretty well rusted on, as anybody knows. But, you know, they're all coming over and go, aha, now we found you, because the ABC didn't have the money for us to keep doing the potty there. So, yeah, we're certainly getting people are finding out where we are, which is a lovely thing. Great fun. And we're asking people for advice. I mean, we will give advice, rather. Asking people for questions so we can give them probably the most useless advice that they will ever get. I mean, you know. So that's why we can't charge for it, truly.
Well, you know,
we just can't.
The agony aunt thing's been popular for centuries, so best of luck with it.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be keeping an eye on it.
Thanks.
Now, coming up on Mediaweek, Potter Profits, the final Harry Potter film, expected to hand cinemas the highest grossing weekend ever. We'll have the latest on the phenomenon in just a minute.